Welkom by AgriMonitor en hier gesels ons landbou vir hierdie week se program. Eerstens kyk ons na professor Helmke van Bach van die Universiteit van Namibië. Hy is daar so 'n landbou en ekonomie onderwys professor en hy praat by die landbouprodusente organisasie se kongres oor die beeswaardeketting en die beeswaardeketting se industrie in Namibië en die industrie self. Ons begin met daai praatjie. Dan na hom kyk ons verder na Duncan Stevenson, die varkkundige. Hy het gepraat tydens die Landbou-Unie se Varkprodusente Dag. En ons gaan aan met sy praatjie oor biosekuriteit op varkplase. Nou dit is vir varkplase, maar in hierdie tyd van back and close is dit altyd goed om van hierdie maatreëls te kyk en dalk net op jou plaas ook toe te pas. En dan laastens op die tema van back and close gaan ons aan met Dr. Emmanuel Ikufe van die Departement van Veeartsenydienste. Ons gaan dan met sy praatjie wat hy geoog het ook tydens die LPO se kongres vroeër vanjaar. En dan luister ons wat hy daar sê en die raad wat hy gee oor back and close in Namibië. Geniet die program.
In Namibia, where agriculture is the heartbeat of our nation, there is a trusted partner that stands with you every step of the way. A partner rooted in agriculture, cultivating bonds and understanding traditions. Trust in Agra for a prosperous future that values your family. For over 4 decades, Agra has been the trusted constant in farmers' lives, serving as a pillar in Namibia's agricultural landscape. With our enduring presence and countrywide footprint, Agra proudly serves the Namibian community. Our retail offering brings you a wide range of products and services at competitive prices. From farm supplies to household essentials, we have everything you need conveniently located under one roof. But it's not just about products, it's about people. Client engagement is at the heart of what we do. Together, we cultivate a better life, preserving traditions and empowering future generations. The Agra retail team proudly serves in our stride towards excellence, providing you with exceptional service and support. Agra, your partner in agriculture, committed to your success and dedicated to a prosperous future for farming and the nation.
Dankie vir die geleentheid. Ek dink dit is tyd om weer te sien wat het gebeur in die laaste 5 jaar. Ons het gesien dinge gebeur, maar ek dink ons almal is bewus dat die beesvleis nog steeds 'n gevraagde produk is en laat daar goeie geleenthede is. So die studie het verskillende fasette gehad. Laat ons kyk na die na wat gebeur in die industrie, wat gebeur in Namibië en dan om te kyk of dit nog steeds op dieselfde beginsel soos destyds in die vorige studie gebaseer is, waar ons op die bloktoetse gewerk het en dan die waardekettings deurgevat het en dan aan die einde van die dag bepaal het, is daar winsgewendheid. Soos Roelie gesê het, in die tussentyd het Savannah al iets gedoen, is nog aan die gang en ek hoop tog dat die studie reg was en wat ons vandag sal sien is dat daar eintlik 'n baie goeie toekoms vir ons wag. Ek wil eers 'n agtergrond gee. Die inligting wat ons dikwels kry deur die Livestock Products Board en deur die instansies is nie die volle storie nie, is nie die volle beeld nie van wat met Namibië se vleis gebeur. Want ons rapporteer nie oor die eie klein klas B en klas C abattoirs nie. Ons fokus net op die klas C en die klas A en die klas A voer die meeste uit. So wat baie mense dink, wat baie van ons boere dink, ons is 'n groot uitvoerland van vleis en dit is eintlik glad nie meer so nie. Ons voer maar net nog 'n gedeelte uit. Ons is nie meer dit wat ons in die 70's was, waar 70% van ons vleis uitgevoer het. En dan het dit ook baie verander dat ons verskillende markte het en ek wil net aandui wat is die situasie oor die afgelope jare. So So wat ons hier sien, is ons het die klas B en C abattoirs, is die kleintjies, en dis die grootes. So alles wat hierdie een is, hierdie onderste lyn, dit is wat die B en C gedoen het, en hulle is maar so typies so 750.000 kilogram wat hulle produseer, en dan die res daarvan is die klas A abattoirs. Dis nou daai geel, swart en bruin, en dan daarbo die oranje. Dit wat dan plaaslik gebruik word, is hierdie eerste 2 blokke. Dit is wat ons eintlik self verbruik, en mens sien daar is duidelike variasie, daar's jare waar ons meer eet en jare waar ons minder eet. Nou, ons weet almal dis nie waar nie, want ons pens is dieselfde grootte, ons kan nie meer en minder eet. Maar dit is waar die informele mark nou ook inkom, en daai inligting het ons ook nie. So, wat ons eintlik sê, is ons is sê maar op hierdie lyn, en dan is daar jare waar ons droogte het, en jare waar ons meer of minder het, of byvoorbeeld in hierdie jaar, waar ons weer diere terughou, so dit maak 'n verskil. En dan kan ons sien, dat hier so RSA, en dan oor C, en die klein gedeelte wat hier in Afrika, of lokaal in die, in Afrika lande verhandel word, is dan verskillend. So wat ons eintlik sien, wat vir ons van belang is oor C, en oor C is maar meestal die EU, en is dan Noorwe, en dan ook die Engeland, die United Kingdom. En wat ons sien, is baie verskillend. Kyk net wat hier gebeur. Hierdie is hierdie jaar, hierdie is gebaseer op die eerste 6 maande, vermenigvuldig met 2, net om 'n projeksie te hê, net om 'n idee te hê wat gebeur. En dit wat ons vanoggend gehoor het, is wel aan die vind plaas, laat ons beeste terughou om op te bou vir die goue toekoms wat kom. Wat ons dan hier sien, is die totale getal beeste wat geslag is oor daai jare, en dan hierdie is die kilogramme vleis. Die volgende stap was om te kyk, wat sê die bloktoetse. Daar is honderde verskillende bloktoetse. Nou, 'n bloktoets is 'n funksie van wat die mark wil hê. En die mark het verskillende behoeftes oor tyd, oor seisoene, oor wie tree in. So daar is verskillende bloktoetse, A, B, C, D, E, ensovoorts. Ek het nou gebruik gemaak van daai, en dan het ek maar die gemiddeld uitgewerk, en daarop dan gewerk. So as 'n mens 'n vetbees het, is jou uitslag anderste as wat jy 'n maarbees het. As jy 'n olifant het, lyk dit anderste as wat jy 'n klein bees het. So dit is baie verskillend, maar die standaard, of jy groot karkas, klein karkas, vet, maar wat ook alles, is oor die algemeen presies dieselfde. 'n kat is 'n kat, 'n fillet is 'n fillet, 'n ramp is 'n ramp, en daar is nie groot verskille nie. Die groot verskille kom daarin, dat die spesifieke verbruiker op die oomblik spesifiek daai stuk so en so wil gesny hê, dat byvoorbeeld die vet afgesny word, of dat die volledige stuk daar moet bly. So wat ons sien, ons het die voorste gedeelte is 47,97%, kom ons sê 48%, en die onderste, die agterkwart gedeelte is 52%.
So water is the first source that we have to ensure is clean and free of any disease. Water is one of the best places for disease to breed in. They've got food, the virus has got food for it there, and it can transport it. It likes the temperature of water, so it will always be a very, very big source. And there's lots we can do for water. We can buy little chlorine tablets, put it in before we give. We can use household products. There's mixtures that you can use, even using jik, to ensure water is clean before feeding it to pigs, right? So there's many very, very cost-effective ways that we can ensure water is clean and good to feed. So we're going to talk this, when we talk about biosecurity, we say there's 2 different types of biosecurity. One is there. What's the first one? External. What does external, do you think, mean? Buitenom. Okay, so we have we've got our piggery, and we're saying external biosecurity is preventing anything that comes from outside in. All right. So give us an example of what comes from the outside into your piggery.
Rats.
Bosvarke, absolutely. Rats, absolutely. Rats are a very, very, very big contributor of disease. Bosvarke, why Bosvarke is so dangerous to a piggery? Why would you think? Yes, wild disease, African swine fever. And they're family of each other. So the disease transfers from a Bosvark to the pig so quickly, so easily. So we want to make sure external, what's the first way of keeping external biosecurity in place? Is a fence. I think a fence deserves a prize. Can I throw it? Sorry. You sien, hy sit hier jou hand op, kom ek wag. So, that would absolutely be the best. Right? A fence that prevents them from coming in with concrete footing, because obviously the pigs get underneath that so well. So in South Africa now, the new law for compartmentalized farms means we have to have 2 fences. One electrified, one normal, both with a concrete footing. That's how strict it is becoming to ensure that external disease that doesn't come in, right? We said rats, a good pest control program. Rat poisons, we always keep on the perimeter, so that if there is rats moving in, they hopefully go to the poison first before coming to the expensive pig food that you have got to buy. And when they come in into the piggery, if a rat is in that feeder, the disease that it has goes straight over to the pigs, like that. Okay. They carry diseases like salmonella, leptospirosis. There's hundreds of diseases that rats carry, and they are adults. They don't get sick from it anymore, but your little piglets die like flies, unfortunately, when they're affected. So fencing, a strong, good pest control system. What about vehicles?
Sanitation paths.
Sanitation, absolutely. So you have another challenge that many countries don't have such a big challenge of. You know, when a European farmer sees a little buck like that in his fields, he gets a surprise because he hasn't seen wild animals for years. You have a different challenge. You have lots of wild animals which also carry disease, transferable to pigs. So when we have a vehicle that's been riding out in the veld and we think that vehicle has never been to a pig farm for years, but so many other animals are transferring disease. Many of our cattle diseases are just as transferable like that. So when a vehicle wants to come to the piggery, you've just gone to go and fetch feed in town, and you've loaded up, you've spent all that money, you may have driven through somebody's cattle walking across the tar road in front of Agra shop where you just bought your Feedmaster feed, and there you take home free of charge a nice disease. Okay. So we always try and spray the vehicle's tires and make sure that before it enters into that piggery, we've at least eliminated as many of the diseases we can before entry. So vehicle entry, absolutely very, very, very important. Not always easy, and we forget quickly. We get into routines, and we're just in a rush. But the vehicle is a big source of you bringing in disease into your piggery. Let's say other external factors. What happens? What can you do if you have visitors? Because you're expanding your pig farm, you might be building your abattoir soon, and everybody's going to want to come and look. Eh? Other pig farmers are the first ones to say, I want to come and visit you. What does it look like? What are you doing? What can we do there? Foot bath. Excellent. Excellent. I think that deserves one. Eh? A foot bath is absolutely a good thing. Eh? Disinfectant inside there, regularly exchanged, because a foot bath will only last, especially if it's 40 degrees plus, will only last a day. The next day it needs to be. So let's say you don't have the facilities to have a foot bath every day, but when you get a visitor, at least you make sure their feet are nicely in there, wet, before coming in. What can you do about his clothing?
New. And downwards.
Absolutely. That's it. Yo.
My colleagues, I went to visit their farm. They remove everything, even my underbrook.
Did they give you something to put on?
They give me new clothes.
Oh, I'm glad. You didn't have to just walk in like that. I'm glad for their sake they gave you that. Eh? Okay. But that's the point. Eh? So if there was anything on your clothes that you were not aware of, any disease, it wouldn't have got into the piggery. Because outside you took it off, it's there, you washed clean, and you come in.
All right. So in the contingency plan, these are now the provisions in the contingency plan. So when there is a risk of a disease, the contingency plan has to be activated. So when like now we have a risk from South Africa, it can be a risk from the protection zone, or it can be a risk from Botswana, or it can be a risk from anywhere else. So it's not yet here, but there is a risk. So we activate the contingency plan aimed at preventing the disease, that risk of a disease from getting into our country. And that's what we are doing now. We have beefed up the controls at the borders. We are patrolling the borders. We are doing surveillance. And we've carried out awareness to the farmers. We will be carrying out soon awareness to our own staff members so that they can recognize the disease, so that farmers can recognize the disease, so that farmers will know what to do to prevent this disease from coming. That is, we are preparing, or we are trying to prevent a risk that is not too far from us. Okay? So the contingency plan can also be activated if there's a suspicion, a significant suspicion. Maybe some animals tested positive. We are not so sure whether it's the disease. We take samples and do all what we need to do, stop movement. And we have to activate the contingency plan and carry out a few measures. And also, of course, if it is confirmed, if the disease is confirmed, of course, everything that has to do with the contingency plan is activated, and everyone is on alert to control the outbreak and get rid of it. So there is also a big question and also a provision in the contingency plan. What happens if the disease hits the country, if the disease comes into our free zone? What happens? So according to WOHA, which is the World Organization for Animal Health, there is provision that if you get an outbreak in your free zone, you can create what we call a containment zone. A containment zone. A containment zone, we are creating an area to contain the disease, to contain that outbreak. But we can only do that if there's early detection. And that's what we were doing with farmers in this recently concluded FMD awareness. The farmers are the ones that are with animals, so they see the disease, but then they need to report to us quickly. We're also carrying out in surveillance so that we can see the disease quickly if it comes. If you detect it early, you can respond early. If you detect it early, it will probably just affect a small area. So then we can cordon off that area and then contain the disease there. It's a containment zone. That's why it's called a containment zone. Okay? So once you contained the disease in that specific area, you would then apply to WOHA, the World Organization for Animal Health, for their approval of that containment zone. If it is approved, then the restrictions stand still. It's just restricted to that area, and the rest of the free zone can start trading again. But remember, as I said, only if we can detect the disease early, so that we are able to contain it to a specific area. If the disease is all over, you won't have a containment zone, because then the whole zone will be suspended, will remain suspended. All right, so after approval of the containment zone, as I said, the restriction will only remain, or they will only be restricted to that area where surveillance will be carried out, preventative measures must also be carried out, and then that containment zone, according to OHA, it has to have a physical or geographical barriers, meaning that it's not just a line. We are not going to use to say this up to this road, gravel road or this third road, that's now the containment area. No, there must be a physical barrier, a fence, or there must be a mountain that animals can cross over, or there must be a river that animals can cross over. Something must stop free movement from the containment area or to the other area, or vice versa. Okay. Emergency vaccination in the containment area will have to take place, or culling of the animals that are in the containment area has to take place. Or culling means destruction of the animals in there, because that's actually the standard, one of the standard rules or rather procedures of getting rid of this disease. Germany got a disease in buffaloes recently. They have to cull all of them, and they regained their status quickly. So it sounds harsh, but that has to be done if we want to get this if we want to get rid of this disease quickly. But we are going to talk about compensation, because we are not just going to destroy animals without compensation. We'll talk about compensation. Yeah. So this is a schematic depiction of the containment area. 30-kilometer radius, 2 farms wide. Don't worry about those measurements. It depends on the area that's affected, the geography of the area, and the animals that are affected. So what I want to show here is that the red area can be the infected area. It can be 1 farm, 2 farms, a few farms. It can be a constituency, things like that. So now you then say, you go outside and then start doing your surveillance. So this area is infected, you do surveillance in this whole area. And then if you don't find cases here, and then you can now draw a line. That line can be a physical fence or any other barrier that, depending on the geography of that area. So what happens is all animals in this area, they will not be moving out, right? Once this area is approved by WOHA, anything, the free zone outside this area can start trading. But then all these animals here can be vaccinated and also get culled. Why do you vaccinate and still destroy animals? You vaccinate to stop the spread and then later get rid of the animals, okay? Or you can just go straight and just get rid of the animals already if you are sure that the animals have not, the infection has not crossed that line. Okay. Now, in the contingency plan, there's, what's the word? There are possible scenarios of the outbreak in terms of size, okay? So we say, what happens if the outbreak affected or only about 5,000 cattle? And we are talking about cattle here because it was based on the serotype 1, 2, and 3, that is predominantly only affecting cattle. This was based on the risk analysis that was conducted in 2012 by Thompson and Fenter. Okay, so we in the contingency plan, of course, we are going to update those figures. Those figures were for 2012. Of course, they might be more. The money might be more than what was proposed then.
En daar het julle dit vir hierdie week se program. Ons het Back and Close hier ordentlik geluister daarso na Dr. Emmanuel Hikufe van die departement van veeartsenydienste, en dan net voor hom het Duncan Stevenson gepraat oor die biosekuriteitsriglyne in sy praatjie wat hy vroeër vanjaar gegee het, en dan ook die program het begin met Dr. Helmke van Bach oor die beeswaardeketting hier in Namibië. Hy raak bietjie tegnies, maar dit is belangrik om die inligting in te neem. Dankie dat julle aangesluit het.